What's up, everybody? It's Make It Make Sense. I'm here for another video, and oh my gosh, this started off with the Tasha K interview with Marjorie Harvey's ex, and then I went down the rabbit hole. Now there's all these scandals, lies, allegations, affairs, and we got to get into it. Like the video as my intro plays, because we got a lot to discuss, and I don't think y'all knew some of this.
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. That's all. 1 and 1 got to equal 2.
Make it make sense, boo.
Big moves. Surfer. Make it make sense. Tell me how you squeeze it. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things that you say. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things of your dreams. Hey, let me work out all the things in between. Make it make sense. Tell me how you squeeze it. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things that you say. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things of your dreams. Hey, let me work out all the things in between. Make it make sense.
Sun in the sky.
Okay, guys, so if I tell you that everybody always thinks that Marjorie Harvey has this crazy life because the allegations that she was with the kingpin and maybe she did some stuff, with the kingpin and all, Steve Harvey has the most interesting, insane life. I want to start off with a rumor that I had heard about Marjorie that I thought was pretty disgusting. The rumor went that Marjorie had dated 2 dealers and they were both cousins, and she had a baby by both of them. If you don't remember, the rumor is all over the internet, but I'll let you hear this.
Allegedly saying that she was married to 2 drug kingpins who were cousins at 2 different times, and they both went to prison. And before they went to prison, while she was married to them, she had babies by them, which in turn makes the babies both cousins and siblings.
So that was the original rumor that I decided we should clear up first. Her initial husband, Mr. Townsend, did an interview, not the one with Tasha K, because I will be reviewing that one for you guys, but he did an interview with, let me give this person credit. He did an interview with the Lionel B show. And on that interview, he says that, well, I'll let you guys hear exactly what he had to say.
Who's Donaire Woods to you?
Donaire, nothing but actually I've never seen Donaire Woods. If he spoke to me today, I wouldn't know him. But I did, Marjorie, she married Donaire while I was in prison. And in fact, she got a daughter, Lori. Donaire and Marjorie has a daughter named Lori. But I did, and just show you what kind of relationship, just that type of relationship,
Gotcha. So in terms of the internet saying that you guys were cousins and all of that, so that's all not true.
Well, see, you know what, Lionel, there's a lot of untruth that's been told on it. You know how the internet is. One person, about you tell a story, by the time you get to the end, you get I don't know how many different versions.
Oh yeah,
but, yeah. So you know how that goes. So no, we're not cousins.
Okay, so y'all heard it directly from Mr. Townsend, who would know because the rumor was about him. The allegation was that Donaire Woods and he were cousins, and that Marjorie had a baby by both of them. Not true. Now, there were 2 cousins, allegedly, and we'll get into that in my Tasha K interview. Look out for that video. But I'm telling you guys, this is crazy. So the next thing that I heard was, at this point, I have watched all these interviews, an interview with Mary Harvey, Steve's ex-wife, who eventually had a gag order and was put in jail. You guys can let me know in the comments if you guys want me to deep dive, because I've been learning some things, and if you want me to, I can make videos about it. But Mary Harvey is definitely a character. Now back to Steve and Marjorie. So the timeline of events, everybody says, oh, Marjorie was allegedly Steve's mistress while he was with Mary. And so that was what I heard. In fact, one of my friends' moms actually said, everybody knows that. And so I was like, okay, so I'm listening to an interview and I hear this. Steve did an interview with Shannon Sharp. A lot of you probably have already seen that, but you know how I do. I can take something that you didn't even know was something and let you know what that something was. And this opened my ears. So I want you guys to hear it.
And then That was 2005. I reconnected with Marjory in 2005, right after the divorce. 2006, she came.
You reconnected. So y'all had dated before?
I dated her in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, I dated her in the 80s.
I thought they say love is like an eclair. Once it goes cold, it can't.
The 80s changes everything because Steve was with Mary Harvey in the 90s. The 80s changes the entire timeline, and that is what you and me are about to go through. This is crazy. Y'all get some popcorn, grab some wine. If you don't drink, grab some water, because this timeline is insane. And again, you guys can put in the comments if you want more of these videos, because there's a lot more content. And let's start. I didn't even know that Steve was married before Mary. So in 1980, Steve married a lady named Marsha. He likes the M's, y'all. First wife, Marsha, with one of his twins. Then he had 2 twin girls, Brandy and Carly, with Marsha. 1982, Marjory was 18 years old. She met a guy who was a dealer, a big-time dealer, Mr. Townsend, Jim Townsend. They dated. Now, here's the first thing. When I do my review of the Tasha K interview with him, he alleges that he was married, and Marjory eventually knew about the wife. And there's a whole big thing with that, but we're just doing the timeline. I'm telling you guys, this will start it off. This is about to get it popping. She married, or it's very fuzzy on when they specifically got married, Marjory and Jim. However, 1985, Marjory had Morgan from Jim. Now, this is where things get fuzzy, because allegedly in 1989 is when he met Mary, who would eventually become his wife. However, he was still very much in a relationship with Marsha, and not just a relationship, a marriage. Are y'all following me? So he met Mary in 89. But from that clip that y'all just heard in that interview, he had actually started dating Marjory sometime in 89. And Marjory was still with her husband, Jim Townsend, who had not gone to prison yet. So much to the fact that she had a baby by him in 91. She had her son, Jason, with her husband in 1991. To prove that Steve was still very much in a relationship with his wife, Steve had his son in 1991 as well, Broderick. Are y'all following me? Are you following me? That was the 80s, right? So we have, at some point, because the interview Marjory and Steve gave both said that they had met, they were dating, and then Steve just left. There was no issues, no problems, no fights. Steve just left Marjory. Marjory said it. Steve said it in an interview as well. So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But when I think about it now, if you allegedly have multiple women, a wife, you're on the road, you're trying to make it, what is one more woman who Steve said Marjory had a kid, which Marjory had a little kid, which would be Morgan, which would mean that both she and Steve were both married when they first got together, which the internet seems to think that it was when he was with Mary that they first got together. But technically it was with Marsha, his first wife, allegedly, just based on the timeline he gave, because he said in the 80s. I told y'all this was crazy. So now we got Mary, Marsha, Marjory, all somewhere in the mix, still living their best lives, still trucking along, moving forward. Did y'all know there was Terry? Terry alleges that she was a 9-year mistress that met Steve in 91. Now, I'm going to start showing y'all more of the pictures. Mary initially did not know that Steve was married. I'm pretty sure, allegedly, Steve didn't tell Marjory either. But Mary says she did not know. She eventually did find out about the fact that Steve was married with Marcia because Steve's mother called on the phone and Mary started talking to her about how much, her and Steve had been talking about getting married. And she just said, you can't marry him because he already has a wife. That's how she found out that Steve was married. But it did not stop her from seeing Steve. So it allegedly everybody was a mistress. Wasn't nobody taking vows that they cared about. Let's go back to Terry. Now, Terry wrote a book called Men Will Lie When the Truth Will Do, The King, His Queen, and the Other Woman. I already talked to the only person who, in the world, who has a copy of this book. Her name is Geneva, and she was telling me so much. Y'all can put in the comments if you want me to interview Geneva because she's already read the book. Eventually, Steve got some form of I don't want to say gag order, but something was done with the attorneys where allegedly Terry got $120,000 payout and her rights were limited to what she could do and say as it regarded to Steve. However, she eventually wrote the book, and there's an allegation that there is a lawsuit where she felt she was wronged in whatever agreement that they signed, although she took the money. She says in that, which I actually do have a copy of the lawsuit. She says that, let me see. In 1991, Ms. Smith met Mr. Harvey in a comedy club. Immediately thereafter, Mr. Harvey and Mrs. Smith began a personal relationship. Mr. Harvey flew Mr. Smith to cities where he was performing his comedy acts. Travel was often arranged through Mr. Harvey's assistant, Miss Megan, at Harvey's instructions. The relationship between Miss Smith and Mr. Harvey lasted 9 years. In 2004, Miss Smith wrote the book entitled Men Will Lie When the Truth Will Do, in part based on her life and her personal relationship with Mr. Harvey. So the book was published. But then whatever agreement they did, and she got that $120,000 allegedly, stopped and halted production of the book. That's why Geneva was the only person to get a copy of it, because it was limited production. Insane, right? Who even knew all this was going on? And we're not done with the timeline. Crazy. So in 1994, in 1994, Marcia had enough and goes ahead and files for a divorce from Steve. The allegations go, she found out about Mary while she was pregnant with Broderick. So that ended that relationship. In 1996, Steve went ahead and married Mary. 1997, Marjory had Lori for Donaire Woods, the other alleged dealer, who had some connection to Jim Townsend, but they were not related. I think Jim will allege that he was one of the underlings in his empire. We're not even, there's so much, guys. 2004, Donaire Woods gets indicted for dealing. Now, what's shaky and what's funny is when you are doing all these searches, when you get to things like specific dates of Marjory Harvey's marriages, it's not on the net, guys. It's not. So you actually have to do timelines based on what people have said in interviews. So I don't know. I do know that you can scrub certain things, but I'm just like, this is deep. 2005, Steve gets a divorce from Mary. Mary alleges that prior to 2005, she was getting phone calls from Marjory. You know who else said they allegedly got a phone call from Marjory much earlier than that? Terry. Now, Terry says she met him in 91 and the relationship was up until 2000, 1991 to 2000. She alleges she was in that relationship with Steve Harvey. So that would put Marjory Harvey somehow in the mix with Steve in the 80s. And now, based on Terry's allegation, in the 90s as well. And the allegation goes that she got a phone call from Marjory saying that Steve had given her all this information about her and they actually met up. Crazy. Again, if you want all that, we'll have to talk to Geneva, who can give us the full breakdown. Just put that in the comments section. I told you guys, this was a lot. So 2005, Steve gets a divorce from Mary. 2006, he reconnects with Marjory. 2007, he marries Marjory. Then you have all these stories about how unhappy the kids were. I'm telling you guys, it is a whole lot. But just based on that timeline, you tell me if you knew all those series of events, because your boy did not. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I just had to give you guys the timeline so that if I do more videos, you guys won't be confused. But yes, just based on what Steve said, he met Marjory in the 80s. The allegations are that he met Mary in the 80s. The allegation is he met Terry in 91 and was carrying on a full-on relationship with Mary also in 1991. And Terry alleges that somewhere in the mix in the 2000s, Marjory reached out to her. I'm sorry, prior to 2000, Marjory reached out. Like, crazy. That's why I was like, y'all let me know if you guys want more of this, but it's a whole lot. This video was supposed to come out in the morning, and here we are now, late into the afternoon, because these timelines, like the video, your boy is working, and I will see you guys probably tomorrow morning with the review of Jim Townsend's interview with Tasha K, because he dropped a lot of juicy tidbits. And it was insane. But the last thing I can say is mistresses are winning these days. You got one who's about to be queen. Anyway, I don't even think that all the stuff about Marjory was as scandalous as the stuff about Steve. But as always, you know, women get vilified whenever you use the term mistress. But we need a term for a man mistress, because allegedly that's what Steve was. I don't know. I'll see you guys later. This was a whole lot.